All right. Hi, I'm Brad Meyer. I'm running for Congress. Most of this time, this is, I think, the 17th or 18th one of these we've done. When I started running a little over, well, a year ago now, Frank didn't know until more recently, we worked together at Crane. When I first started, I got advice from people and they said, well, what you need to do is you need to talk to Monroe County and Clark and Floyd County, and you need to spend all of your time in those counties because that's where the majority of the Democrats are. And what they're really saying is screw the other 15 counties in the district. Right? I mean, because if they want me to spend all of my time in those 3 counties, that means the other 15 counties I don't spend any time in. And if you look at it mathematically, that is a solid idea to win the primary because that's where the majority of the Democrats are. But then when you get out of the primary, then we're completely flat-footed. We don't have any support in the other 15 counties. And the other 15 counties are losing energy. I mean, this is one of the bigger groups I've had in a while, frankly, and out of the 17 that we've had, because the Democrats have been ignored. So I made a conscious decision that I was going to get to every county I can. And I appreciate y'all being here tonight. It's important. Yeah. And then I've also spent most of my time, you guys have the benefit of being the last one of these I do before the election, which means the other 17 times when I was making mistakes, and I made the comment, I said, this is kind of like being a parent. By the time you get good at it, you're done. And it's like, I finally figured it out and now it's changed, right? But most of the time, I've talked about what I'm focused on. And we'll talk about that and hopefully we'll have a good conversation, an open conversation. By the way, this is being recorded. So if you don't want your name used, then you don't have to announce yourself, but just be aware that it is being recorded and live streamed, I think. Is it being live streamed? It's being live streamed. So watch your P's and Q's. And we'll get into the details, I think, during the course of the discussion of what I believe in, but I'll give you a thumbnail sketch. Economically, I am as far left as I can be and be elected in Southern Indiana. Okay. I'm in favor of Medicare for all. I'm in favor of a $20 an hour minimum wage. I'm in favor of changing the ceiling so that more people are able to get overtime pay. And the basic fundamental driving force is that we need economic policies that are going to help people have a fair shot at a decent life. And a lot of Democrats and I'm not trying to mean-mouth Democrats, but I'm trying to help you understand where I fit in the constellation of all the Democrats, right? A lot of Democrats are talking about the 1%. We're very angry about what the 1% are doing. I can understand that. But my thoughts and heart are really around what does life look like for the 99%? And for 99% of us, 8% of us, if this is the distribution of wealth in the 99%, which it doesn't look like this distribution, Frank and I could probably geek out and get it for you. But about 8% of us are at or below the poverty line. Less than half of people 30 years old are doing as well as their parents were when they were 30. So when we were talking right before this, and she said, how do we get young people involved? Young people are, in general, frustrated, a little bit pissed off, and certainly not optimistic about the future. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. Okay. So I think I'd like to take just a minute and kind of talk to you about my origin story and what is driving me, and then we can have a general discussion about things that are keeping you up at night. I am a 7th generation Hoosier, grew up in Browns, which means me running for Congress is the second craziest thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, if you look at the pictures, I wasn't even shaving on a regular basis when we got married. So, but we've been married for 40 years. So we got married, moved up to Purdue, got an engineering degree. My wife and I worked our way through college together and then got out, started our family, started our careers. I worked for 25 years in industry in manufacturing, different types of manufacturing. And in leadership positions. The last 9 years of my career, I worked for the Navy as a civilian engineer, as an electromagnetic warfare expert, working on systems that protected ships from missile attack. And in all of that time, I was not politically active, and I never had any intention of doing anything political. My wife and I, we struggled for a lot of years. When I asked her to marry me, I told her it was going to be hard, and I didn't realize what hard was until we had to try to start building a life together. And we went years, many years, trying to balance budgets and get by. And we finally got to a point that things had smoothed out, and we were on a glide path to a smooth retirement. When Trump got reelected, I was covered by a law called the Hatch Act, which limits what you can do politically. So I told my wife, I said, okay, we've got 7 years until I can take full retirement. I just need to keep my head down and my mouth shut for 7 years. These things aren't going to affect me. And then he took office, and within a couple of weeks, I went to her and I said, I guess it was 4 weeks. I said, I'm not going to make it 7 years, keeping my mouth shut. And I said, I can take early retirement in 1 year and we will figure something out, but I'm going to have to get in the game. I'm going to have to do something. End of March, I went to her and said, I'm quitting my job and I'm running for Congress. And she's like, what happened to a year until early retirement? What happened? And I said, they fired the board of the Kennedy Center. Now, looking back, it seems like that's such a small thing compared to all the craziness that's happened since then. But what I knew in that moment is that when people in power start specifying what is acceptable and unacceptable speech, we're in real trouble. And everything that he has done since, unfortunately, I have not been surprised. And I think that it was clear to me at that point that our democracy was in risk. So I quit my job, started running, started going to the different counties and talking to people. I was talking to a guy, I'll use him as a prop. I was talking to a guy, it was not him, by the way, but I was talking to a guy and I told him my story and he said, Brad, he said, you can't tell people that you quit your job to save democracy because that sounds crazy. And what I didn't say to him was, what's really crazy, welcome. What's really crazy is sitting on the sidelines and watching this happen. So that's my origin story. As I've been going around and talking to people, I've been asking them what keeps them up at night. And some people have said, some people have talked about education or other things. But the number one answer I get now is everything. everything is everything is keeping me up at night because they're hitting everything, anything that protects us or serves us is being knocked out, and anything that builds their strength and power is being elevated. So that's me. Then the question comes in, how am I different than the other candidates? What's different about me? The short answer is that a lot of Democrats, and I can understand why, say, well, there's votes over here. We've lost badly for years, frankly. There's votes over here, and if we move right and we soften our positions and we dream smaller and we advocate for less and we just focus on fixing the things that are in front of us, that people will vote for us. What we've seen in the last election is that Republicans don't cross over for a wannabe Republican, and Democrats don't turn out for somebody that they can't tell the difference. Strategically, I believe, or I assert, that the right answer is that we stand our ground and we explain to the others why our values matter to them, why it's in their best interest to vote with us, rather than trying to look and sound more Republican. That strategy isn't working. And I really believe that if we don't fight now, we're going to lose an awful lot. The SAVE Act is coming. There was somebody just put something out. I didn't have time to read it, but they're also trying to implement some other things that women in particular are at. And one of the reasons is, on average, women tend to be more democratic. And they view the world a little bit differently, and it's not aligned with what they want in their power. So I'm more inclined to fight than I am to try to get along. And the last thing, the analogy is, when somebody is trying to drive you off a cliff, your job isn't to get them into the middle of the road. Your job is to stop them and change direction. And that's where we're at today. So anyway, that's my big speech. That's my origin story and my kind of orienting background. So this is always the hard thing. I need somebody to throw out the first pitch and talk about what's on their mind and what they're worried about. Yes. Oh, that was easy. All right. If you can.
Okay. No, my name is Sonia Beasley. My name is Sonia Beasley, and I was at the meet and greet, and I was very impressed with you that day. I felt like, because my whole thought is Democrats have a tendency to fight too fairly, or to be too nice is a better way of putting it. We can't sit around the campfire with MAGA and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. You have to hit back. You have to fight fire with fire. And I think that you can do that. I understand the situation with having your opponent as a woman, that you wouldn't want to be perceived as a bully, in that regard. However, you can use everything Ms. Houchin has voted for, and especially the fact she voted no on releasing, on opening Epstein files.
Mhm.
You can also hit her with everything with her undying devotion for Trump.
Right.
I mean, that woman loves a photo op, doesn't she? And, I know that, I could say this, but as a man, you wouldn't feel comfortable about it, but she has spent more time putting on her Spanx than she's spent in Indiana. And that's the truth. She's never here, but all of a sudden, little Miss Houchin is here making all of her little appearances and all that because she knows she's up for election and that she's in trouble. But I do think that you can absolutely use all of her poor judgment against her, and that's not perceived as bullying. That's just stating fact.
Correct.
I do
Yeah.
believe that. And, everything, I mean, the whole administration is one big joke. And for them to sit back and support all of the policies, and, I don't know, I was telling you about this, but I had to laugh today. Did you see what Hegseth did?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He was doing what he thought was a prayer, and it was actually the fictitious prayer from Pulp Fiction.
Oh,
He
really?
did that for a military group, and it's all over Facebook. I mean, people are making fun of it left and right, and there's, it would be hilarious if it weren't so absolutely jaw-dropping scary. This guy is over our military.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. But, that's what I feel. I just feel like that you have to fight back and also I just don't see how that could be perceived as bullying, but they won't be bipartisan. It doesn't matter what they say. Nobody's going to be like that where they're going to sit around and have this amicable conversation. And so I don't think that you can just be mild with them. I think that, and that was the thing, is I think that you are best suited, from what I gathered at the meet and greet, to do this and do it in an appropriate way.
Yeah, and after the first Democratic debate, I don't know if any of you saw the first Democratic debate. One of my friends came to me and she said, Brad, she said, I saw a side of you I've never seen before. She said, I saw a little bit of bulldog.
That's good.
And that's intentional in that in my interactions with her, I don't have to be that way, right? I don't have to treat people that way. I don't have to step on people to get what I want, but I have to stand. I wasn't looking for, and that's what we need right now.
Absolutely.
And there's really a struggle in the Democratic Party. There's a lot of people that are upset and they want change, but they're reaching back to Lee Hamilton saying, well, Lee Hamilton would have crossed the aisle and would have been able to work it out with him. The difference, and there are some people in the Democratic Party that think that that's the right answer today. There are times for a Lee Hamilton.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are times for a fighter.
Yeah.
And if these were the times for Lee Hamilton, I would still be on my path to a 7-year retirement and a quiet life with my wife, because I don't covet this job. But I didn't see the fight. I didn't see somebody standing up saying that they were going to fight against this. It's not time to hug it out. We have to fight for it.
Yep.
That's what I'm about.
Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't mean that I want to be like them and use bad language, although I'm trying to avoid that, but there is a little bit of that in me. And you can disagree without being disagreeable, but that doesn't mean that you have to give ground, right? And there's been a big discussion about that type of thing. And the bottom line is you can't negotiate with people that are not negotiating in good faith. And they're just going to roll things back.
Yep, I agree. But that's, that's just how I feel about it. And I think that's one of the reasons that you see, I mean, going back to Biden thought that he could be like old school, like he was years ago, and be bipartisan with the MAGA people, and it didn't work. I mean, he failed in that regard miserably. And, and then I also wanted to commend you on the fact that you did go to all the counties that you have, because I think that that was a mistake in the president's, in the candidacy for Harris, that she basically focused on the swing states. And the fact, and she didn't even come to Indiana. She didn't go to a lot of places. So people feel like they're neglected if that's the case. And so the fact that you did make the effort to go to all the academies, you should be commended for.
Thank you. It's hugely important, because when I came in a year ago, frankly, there were a lot of counties that were in disarray from the Democratic Party. That they were in the process of reorganizing and trying to decide what they wanted to do. And there's the number of Democrats have been going down over the years because, in my opinion, they didn't have anything to turn out for, right? We didn't have candidates running. We didn't have a platform that talks about the future and about what can we do better. This year, for the first time in, I think, 40 years or more, Indiana State and Indiana Senate, Democrat all the way across the board. It hasn't happened in forever, right? So Democrats are energized. See, we're really hyper-focused on what Project 2025 is doing. Everybody knows what 2025 is, right? Part of the issue that I have with some of the messaging and focus is that if we stopped everything out of Project 2025, if we stopped everything that Trump has done, that takes us back to 2024. And in 2024, all the economic problems that I was talking about, those are stats from 2024, right? Life was not spiffy. The future for young adults was not strong in 2024. The stability, the economic stability for retired people was not real strong in 2024. And the working middle, a lot of them are we're still living hand to mouth and not having stability, seeing the point where they could see a clean retirement. So we need to fight for more in 2024. We need to change the policies we need to stop 2025. We need to do more than just go back to 2024. We need to talk about what it looks like going forward. So,
Well,
yes, ma'am.
what's your plan to get non-voters to vote?
If you look at the numbers, so the question was, what's the plan to get non-voters to vote? If you look at the numbers, and these are rough numbers, about 240,000 people voted for Aaron Houchin last time, okay? And about 120,000 voted for Tim Peck, which was our candidate, our standard bearer. We lost 2-1. To win this election, you either have to get 62,000-ish people to cross back over and vote Democrat, or you have to get 121,000 people approximately off the couch to come in and vote. My answer is to do either one of those, have the exact same solution. And that is, give them something worth getting off the couch and voting for, or coming across the aisle and voting for. If we're going to talk about, we're going to restore, and this is important and it's valuable to do, if all we're going to do is stop Project 2025, and then we're going to have this middle of the road policies, then what we're offering people is that we negotiated, we worked with the other side. Next year is only going to suck as much as last year did. And that is not how you get people to vote.
How do you get your message to those people? How do you find them? How do you target those people?
That is a very difficult question.
That keeps me.
Okay. That is something that we're working on. And it's a challenge in this environment. Newspapers are not near as influential as they used to be.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Right. TV is not as influential as it used to be. Social media is really where a lot of people, how many people heard about this or saw this on social media? Okay. How many people heard or saw about this based on texts? Okay. All right. Those are two of the ways that in the primary I've been able to reach out. We're going to have to extend that. We're also going to have to really get into it's like the early Christian church. They didn't. It was word of mouth. For vote right now for early voting, and this is why you need to look at Brad Meyer. This is really important. I need to primary because if I primary, I cannot couching out the fall.
Are you gonna do nothing and organize for?
Absolutely going to have. We're going to have flyers. We're going to have mailers. All of the traditional things, and then there have to be some social overlays in addition. And unfortunately, the best estimate right now is that's a $3 million endeavor. And you know, I wish money was not part of politics, but it's expensive and it's going to be a slog. Having said that, now I'm running as a Democrat in Southern Indiana, so you know that I'm an optimist. Right? You've got to be an optimist to run as a Democrat. Okay. But I'm not an idealist. I know that this is going to be hard and we have to do it. One of the first things I did before I quit my job, before I handed in my notice, I talked to a county chair who shall go nameless. And he said, well, Brad, what's your strategy? Are you planning to lose to win? And I said, I don't understand what you mean. And he said, well, you know, that you're gonna run and you're gonna get some name recognition, and then you're gonna lose in the primary, and then the next time you'll be set up that you can run and win the primary. And I said, no, I'm planning on winning the general election because we have to win the general election, right? This is not one of these. I'm not trying to make a career out of this. I'm not trying to have fun with this. I'm doing this because this is what has to happen, and we have to win this time. Thoughts, questions?
Can I piggyback on what
Yeah.
you said earlier, put you on the spot? Jim and I were talking before. You made some excellent points about young people and their involvement and their concerns. Do you mind sharing that a little bit?
Sure. I've been executive vice president, several corporations, National Gypsum and Shoals being one.
Okay.
Came back here twice. I've been teaching the youth here for many years. Martial arts, work with police department, sheriff's department. My cadets down, my studios across the street. They're not ready. This whole thing about pre-registering your kid at 18, all this BS. It's not. FAFSA, your child has turned 18, goes to college, FAFSA reports, you write income tax. They know everything about the kids. Now, knocking on doors or whenever kids are at it and try to find everybody. Tell you, kids in this town, they're not ready. Where are we? And they're scared. A lot of them are skilled. Skilled, third and fourth grade black belts. Competitions, trophies, not afraid of nobody. But they're not gonna fight with somebody else. Because no one's knocking on their door, and no one's here, and they can't relate. We've raised these kids. I'm 68 years old. We've raised these kids. My son's 26. He's a doctor. I use funds. Now, with an education, we all sit around here, there's a lot of military here, military. This is insane. And what he's doing is totally off. He's off the block. He's just fell off the cliff. But yet, if anyone else in history would have ever even attempted 1/10 of what this guy did, it'd be the end. So why has it just been set back, and why? Democrats are looking away. Up here 7 decades, this is nuts. We're military all the way back to the American Revolutionary War. She the door of the Americans. I'm just telling you, this is insane. And there's no way that you can justify it.
I'm not trying.
And there's been no really an explosion from the Democratic Party. Hey, stop. You can't do that. We got to stop. It's not that. How can this guy, I was brought up in New Jersey, New York.
It shows a little bit. Go ahead. Go for it. Yep. Yeah.
We know this thing. We have relatives that used to be in his apartments and stuff. Didn't anybody else know that? Okay, they made a mistake at one time, but it's okay. Don't do it again. I think the approach should be, there's a lot of people out here that are saying, hey, this is bad.
Yes.
But they're afraid. So I feel those people need to be brought over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sing it.
They're afraid.
Yeah.
Because I see the parents and the people I train. I see the parents and the grandparents. I see it in their face. It's not just about the draft, though. It's about what's the future going to hold? What are we leaving our kids, our grandkids? This is nuts. He wants to take out this program, this program, this program, this program, this program. He wants to mess with Medicaid. He wants to mess with Medicare. It's crazy. You can't do that. Any other political person in history would have tried any of that stuff, would have been stopped.
Mhm.
So now I read today that deep dive into the draft things. I have a special situation and do a deep dive in it. So is it, in your opinion, is this done and dusted? And this is going to take effect in December. They're going to start the draft. Because what I read today, it's not actually done and dusted, or is it? And if it was, why didn't the Democratic Party even bring it up to the public all around America that, hey, we're going to do this thing? Hey, man, I already missed one war. And in 250 years, 200 plus, we've been at war. It's time to stop. Stop the war. 200 years plus. You can't, you look at Democrats, Republicans, you look at presidents, and all the Cuban Missile Crisis, you just go right on back. It just has got to stop. I travel all over the world. I do. My job takes me everywhere. My company, I do everything. And I'm just telling you, the ugly Americans out there, because every time we go to Korea, every time we go over there, it's difficult. And it's getting worse every day.
I worked with a guy that was an ex-Navy SEAL, and I was talking to him about his feelings about the military-industrial complex and what our policies are. And his response surprised me. And his response was, as a Navy SEAL, I have fought for this country and I have killed for this country. And what I really want in my leaders is I want me to be the last generation of my family that ever has to do that. And what bothers me about foreign policy in the United States is that's not the ultimate goal. That the goal is not to find a way to get to a peaceful coexistence. And I know that there will always be enemies, there will always be people that are in opposition, and there will always be strife. And I think the Iran war is a good example of what I'm talking about, in that I'm not a fan of Iran. Okay, they've been chanting "Death to America" since 1979,
Yeah.
and they have killed Americans directly and indirectly. We got a problem with Iran.
Yes, sir.
Every president has struggled with that circumstance. Okay, and them getting a nuclear bomb cannot be on the table. Okay, Obama said, we need to step in, we need to do something about this, and he began a diplomatic process to try to address that. It wasn't perfect. And yes, I can guarantee, even looking from the outside, that Iran was going to try to cheat. That's why we have inspectors. That's part of the process. If that process, but when Trump came in the first time, he immediately killed that. And he did a couple of things that were really important in that. Number one, Obama showed American leadership, and convinced a bunch of our allies to go along with us. And they had to spend political capital to do that. And Trump pulled the rug out from under them. So he undercut the trust between America and her allies. And he showed Iran that we will never bargain in good faith with them. So he put us on a path that the only solution left was going to be conflict, because he removed the possibility of trust. It would have taken a long time. They would have gotten the bomb before we had restored trust. If we had done the diplomatic process and it failed, and a president, whoever that was, went to Congress and asked for a declaration of war, and the American people, through their representatives, approved that, okay. What Trump did, he needs to be impeached and removed from office for doing what he did. If you haven't noticed with the two pens, I'm just short of a pocket protector. I'm kind of a nerd. I am process-based in my thinking. And the process matters. The relationships matter. How we do things and why we do things matters and has long-term consequences. What we're doing now, and I guess the last thing, I'm violently agreeing with you. The other thing, and this is what I thought when we attacked Venezuela. I remember George H.W. Bush said, there is a strong nation, which was Iraq, attacking a weaker nation that was oil rich, which was Kuwait. And this cannot stand. And America is that indispensable nation for good. And he built a coalition and he stopped it. And where we are today is we are the aggressor. We are the evil that we fought. And they're doing it in our name, and that cannot be allowed to continue.
We're being tested.
Yes,
He sent it to us, and now it's up to us. We're being tested.
Trump is picking fights. And the reason that nobody's standing up is it's kind of working out. And I think she was going to come over the table at me, right? But, okay, so we attack Venezuela. We don't suffer a lot of losses. It didn't hurt us, right? We attack Iran. that hasn't, other than oil prices, which is a big deal, has not bit us as hard as it can and maybe will in the future. Eventually, he's going to pick a fight that we get tangled up and we have real trouble with. It may be Iran, it may be China, it may be somebody else, but he's going to keep attacking until it causes real harm in this country. And so that's my concern. Yes, ma'am.
What we were talking about before about how do we go forward doing this? What's our approach? How does the message come across? Now, as a female, when I look at these commercials on TV during political season, I literally just want to turn them. I don't care who's on the TV because everybody's just bickering at each other. Understand that we cannot sit back. This is our time to stand up. However, the hate and anger that has become normalized in this country, it's almost like you have to step up to the plate and play those games, get your message out, but we're losing the young generation. Although I'm retired, I work full time with young people and they are crying. We're supposed to be making this world a better place for everybody. We've had our time and we're trying to just maintain. We need to make it better for the children. And I know quite a few kids that are of voting age, and I'm strongly encouraging them to vote. But they're just not quite sure. They're on the fence because nobody's reached out to them. They definitely don't want Republican, but it's just we've been, as Democrats, we feel like we've been left behind. You being here is like a blessing. I feel like, oh, somebody cares about us.
Exactly.
Right, it's like they don't have a choice. They're raised in a really strong Republican home. So everything that they hear, oh, they're bad, they're bad, and that's what they grow up with. And then all of a sudden,
They're
19, 20, 21, 22-year-old boys, men are going, hey, Master Ray, you're right. What's going on here?
Yeah.
I think you have a really good point. And, I'd just like to add that this is a thing that I think is good, is that MAGA is not Republican. And these people that are raised in these Republican homes, they need to hear that
Mhm.
because it's not, it's that old adage now, it's been kind of floating around there. It's not your father's Republican Party. It's not that way anymore. It's evil. They used to have, a lot of them, whether I believe it or not, used to really, the whole thing about the values of family and, all of that. Right now, that's just pure rubbish.
It is.
And, the whole, like this whole thing about Christian nationalism, it's rubbish. It's based on ego
Mhm.
and it's based on hate. And they hate anybody who disagrees with what they believe in.
and greed.
Yeah, and that's what these kids are hearing at home.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of money behind the Christian.
Oh, yeah, Turning Point USA is one, and our governor is trying to insert that in our schools, in our public schools.
Yeah. And the lieutenant governor, which I always screw up his name, Micah Beckwith, is it Beckwith?
Yes.
Said that he really wants the schools to be privatized. Right. So that, just completely eliminate the public funding for schools, give the money to the parents, and then the parents can decide what they want to do.
Give the tax money that we pay.
Yeah. To the parents, and let the parents figure out what they want to do about education. All right.
Yeah.
So
Great. Big guy.
So it's a bad idea, and they're moving down the road with their bad ideas to dismantle education. And it's not working. So if you are in a position where you've got yourself a little plan and it's not working, what do you have to do? And the answer is you have to get rid of the Department of Education, because one of their jobs is to report back to the states so that the parents can know how the education system is working. This attack on the Department of Education has everything to do with the desire to undermine local schools under the guise of local control. Department of Education is not there to control the local schools. Local communities control 90% of the money and the curriculum. The federal government helps you understand how well that school is doing and helps with funding for children with disabilities that the local schools have trouble funding their education. How can you be against that? Well, you can be against it if they're telling the truth. If you got an evil plan, you want to be the only source of information on how it's going. That's what it's about. They're blinding us. Yes, sir.
Thanks so much to say. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Betsy DeVos and Campbell.
Oh, my.
With Donovan Publishing Company and the book, famous book that they published, The Late Great Planet Earth, which lays out the whole template of what they're doing right now and making happen. Okay. I'm a hippie. My dad was a American soldier that was in the first Jeep at the gates of the Dachau concentration camp. He was a gay man. That he was a gay man all his life. My elder brother was lieutenant commander and was flagship of the North Atlantic Fleet, and then he was the chief of staff of the amphibious fleet of the first Persian Gulf War. I just called him 2 weeks ago to ask him what's going on, because I know he knows. Okay, don't touch his laptop. You go to prison. And I didn't even have to ask him. He just laid it right out. Took about 2 sentences toward apart. Okay, and about 2 sentences, and then proceeded to say, "We're going to lose." I said, "Why do you say that?" And he goes, "Because I'm a weapons expert. I know all the systems. I know how he's used your systems, I'm sure." Okay. And he goes, "I do this." He goes, "They came up with a weapons system that for less than $2,000, they can make it in any garage." He says, "We cannot stop them. We can stop one or two here and there, but they still forward at us. We try and put a ship through the Gulf. Sorry, it's sinking." He said, and he's very concerned about his men. Okay, he's retired. But I'm the polar opposite. I would say I'm a visionary. I actually grew up outside of the system. When I graduated from high school in 1970 and went into an employment agency to get a job, they went to a file, looked at my name and said, "Get out of here, kid, you'll never get a job." Flat out. Okay, I have had to employ myself throughout my entire life. I've been off the grid for 30 years. I've also solar power. I worked for NASA and designed life support systems for the moon and Mars. I'm a scientist, engineer. Okay, I know how this stuff works. I deal with youth all the time. I find youth go to the local gas station. Okay, just hang out for a little while. Talk to those people. They're the ones who we need to draw in.
Yeah.
And and on that note, they'll tell me exactly what the THC drinks. If we don't legalize pot, the state will never. Okay. Flat out.
Well,
Things.
yeah, I'll tell you, first of all, thank you. I did come out back in November and say that I'm in favor of legalizing marijuana.
We get all the it's probably in Michigan.
Right.
It got litigated, now we have to apply it. So everyone's already done that. So the tax revenue stream, just by the one enough to, right, just on the hemp industry alone, the hemp industry in the state of Indiana, you're talking about multi-million-dollar crops, and they're already being threatened. So they did the investment and they found a loophole in the hemp law. So these farmers, they're growing, and now they're going to break the law. They're losing millions. They're changing the laws. They have laws, Delta 9, all that stuff. all being changed.
Yeah.
They're trying to reverse it. But look at the tax stream, the revenue. All they gotta do is control it like they do cigarettes, tobacco now.
Yeah.
Like, it's no big deal. You know, you tax it, you get high, you get low. You know, 2 hours later, the kid's gone. You hold them to the same accountability you do. You're drunk driving, smoking, you blow, you're in jail, whatever. It's no big deal, control. But the tax stream.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. We've lived in those other states, unbelievable, the things that they're doing. I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about schools and systems.
Yeah.
Where are you at on the Second Amendment? It's like state of Indiana concealed weapons permit. I'd like to hear how you feel on that, school shootings, and that's what I brought that up about, you know, being safe in schools, because we're dealing with some situation being out right now. So how do you feel about this concealed weapons permit for now? It's just open, you go online and you can get it. And I want to tell you where next.
Okay. I am in favor of responsible gun ownership.
Okay.
I have firearms myself. Okay. There is a group, Pat, what's the name of the group?
Mothers Against Moms Demand Action.
Moms Demand Action.
Moms, man.
Right. And I've looked a little bit, and Pat's been talking to me to help me understand kind of what their positions are about responsible gun ownership. The strange thing about, and this is true of a lot of things, but the gun issue is one of the clearest examples. About 70 to 75% of people don't think that if you're on a terrorist no-fly list, you should be allowed to own a gun. I think that's a reasonable thing. If you are a threat to yourself or others, and a court has determined that you're a threat to yourself or others, you should not have guns in your home, right? 70 to 75% of people agree on that. The only place you can go in America that 75% of people don't agree on that is the NRA and Congress. What the hell, right? And it's worse than that when you talk about gun violence. One of the things that you hear, in addition to thoughts and prayers, which I'm a little tired of hearing, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it's not sufficient, right? It's not curing the problem. They say, well, there's nothing we can do. We don't know what to do. And the reason we don't know what to do is there's a federal law that makes it illegal to fund any research on what can be done to improve the situation with gun violence. Federal government will not fund research to address this.
Is that just this administration?
No,
How has it been going on for a long time?
long time. This is an old law, okay? And it's an old problem, right?
How did that law get passed in our name?
Yes.
And all the politicians to be home because they give them so much money to have.
That's right. Right.
Legal bribes.
Yeah, the gun counties are supposed to be handled by the CDC, with the concept being it's like a pandemic instead, that it's causing a lot of deaths. We need to know where and how, you know, they understand pandemics. And yet they would let the CDC budget
Right.
multiple administrations.
So I'd like to do something. By the way, I'm having great fun and I really appreciate this discussion. I'd like to do something. What I'm really pushing for is that we put policies in place that make a better and stronger future for all of us. For young adults, which we've talked about a lot, for people that are mid-career, that are living hand to mouth, and retired people that need stability. And there's a lot that goes into that. And one of the things that came up, I was talking earlier about that distribution, which it doesn't look like this, right, of wealth, and not worried about the 1% in the beginning. And my position is we need to begin by thinking about what we want our society to look like, what we want in our society, and then how do we need to fund it? And if taxing the billionaires is part of that solution, I'm 100% in favor of it. If we can do that and nobody's taxed, I'm fine with that too. That's not going to happen, right? We're going to have to tax the wealthier. So my question is, and I just like to go around the room, and I don't want to start here because then you have a lot less time than you do to answer this question, but what does a just society look like? What is, not nirvana, but what is it that we need in our society that you would, when your time comes and you go, I'm done, I'm out, I'm going to meet my maker, what is it that you want to see left for the next generation?
Quality of integrity. Integrity says a lot. Do what you say, what you're gonna do, and do it.
That's it.
It's just bottom line. We have lost all of the rules and scruples. If we can't be kind to each other and love each other, it's never gonna happen.
It's simple. Courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, dominable spirit. Very simple. That's a code in which we live our life.
Should be.
You should.
I would through mine. That represents everybody, not just the wealthy. I want equal rights. Or everything that our founders did 250 years ago, they were incredible documentation. And we need to get back honoring that. If they wrote so we could change, but what we have now is not changed. I want our democracy to stand. I want respect in the world. And I want our leaders to respect us. And our children, and grandchildren, to be able to respect that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 generations of teachers in my family, of educators, and I feel that education in some form is everything. And the fact that we have people who are at the poverty level, that they need to have opportunities in some form, whether it be a trade school or something, to break the chain of generational of poverty. That's a huge thing. But then right now, like you were talking about the education, Trump has actually closed the door on the actual building that is the Department of Education. And we have a former, this just blows my mind, wrestling mogul in the form of Linda McMahon as our Secretary of Education, who the only qualification the woman has is that she gave $10 million to his campaign. That's sickening in this country. It is, it's a total joke. But education is everything. And that's what I don't understand, that, people say, oh gosh, we need to get these people off of welfare. Well, then do something about them. Give them a hand, it should be a hand up. And we don't necessarily have to, look at it as a hand out, but they need to have some kind of education. And that to me is so much of a lot of the problems that exist.
And the Trump said he likes the stupid people.
Oh, yeah.
He wants to
Of course it does.
He wants to be
Oh, of course it does.
educated.
That's why, and if you look at him, he is absolutely,
He's a moron.
he is, and he had a professor at Wharton School of Business. And that man, the professor, stated that he was the dumbest effing student that he'd ever had in his entire career. And he is, he's a total moron, and he surrounds himself with morons. It's the worst cabinet in the history of this country.
That's why they all.
Oh, I know.
And some people who
Yeah.
have a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And yes, yeah, but
If they're paying.
I'm sorry, say again?
there you go.
Yeah.
Clean air and water. That's important.
That's one of the things, I'll inject myself into this stream of discussion while we're talking about water. No play on words? Okay, fine, I'll leave it go. Historically, we've had to pick between environment and economics. And in the old days, old days, there was a belief that they used pollution as a metric of industrial might. The more polluted a country was, the higher they ranked that for industrial might. But what they're really doing is the companies are taking the cost of doing the job right off of their books, and they're putting it onto our backs. That's what pollution really is they're shifting costs away from their bottom line into our drinking glass and our air. And that is unacceptable. And again, they're gutting the EPA because anything that protects us or ensures our best interest is being destroyed. Anything that increases their power is being strengthened. So, you have anything you'd like to add?
I'd say equal access to healthcare.
That's good.
People die even in this community because they can't afford it.
Yep.
It's unfunctional.
Could you talk some about your views on?
I would love to. By the way, I have not paid her to ask that question. But I would have been willing to pay her to ask that question. I am an engineer. I am also a member of Physicians for a National Health Program. Okay. They are an advocacy group that is advocating for Medicare for all, universal, nonprofit, single-payer healthcare. There are a variety of things that we need to do that I want to work on as soon as I get into Congress. Number one, we need to repeal the gutting of subsidies for the ACA so that people can get back to where they are. That takes us back to 2024, which is not spiffy, but let's at least get that, right? We need to really look seriously at what needs to be done to stabilize our care system, the local hospitals, especially the rural hospitals. Congress and our Congresswoman brought in $200 million to help stabilize our hospitals, which sounds like a good deal, but when you, rural hospitals specifically, but when you divide it among all the people in Indiana, it's about $75 per person, which is like 2 days worth of aspirin in a hospital, right? So we need to stabilize, just stabilize the patient, which is us in this case, right? So the ACA, stabilize the hospitals. And then number three, we need to pass the bill that's gone up in Congress multiple times, and the Republicans have shot it down, for universal nonprofit healthcare. Everybody gets healthcare. And then number four, we need to pass a constitutional amendment that says healthcare is a legal right for every citizen in the United States. Working, not working, good, bad, white, black, man, woman, it's a constitutional right. Because if we do that, we've seen what they're to any improvements we make. They're going to undercut it. The ACA, we were at 15% of the country was uninsured before the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And that's dropped to about 7%. It's going to go back up next year. So what happened? They cut it in half from 15 to 7%. And then Congress tried 100 times to repeal it without replacing. The Senate tried 60 times to repeal it.
It's okay, they've got a concept of the plan.
Right. That comforts me. And
It's as close as Iran's nuclear bomb.
That's a good thing.
we have to get to the point, and the bottom line is that in this medical system, the for-profit medical system will corrupt and undermine anything that threatens their profits. And their profits are not maximized by maximizing our benefit and our health. It's maximized by making things denial-based and complex and we die 6 years earlier than people in other countries on average. We have the highest infant mortality in the developed world. We have the highest maternal mortality in the world, in the developed world, sorry. And people are going broke just trying to pay for their medical bills. 70% of bankruptcies involve medical debt, and 70 to 80% of people that are carrying medical debt have health insurance. So having health insurance is not the panacea to protect yourself financially. We need to replace this for-profit system that isn't profiting us with something that the primary interest is in our benefit.
Do you think that's really possible? Because that would be, the health insurance companies wouldn't exist, right?
Correct.
That'd be right, they wouldn't exist.
Correct.
So I don't know what that happens.
Well, all right, so here's my argument, and that is a valid concern.
It hasn't always been for profit. It's fairly recent, but health in this country is for profit. When was the year that changed? It's not been that long.
Well,
In my lifetime.
right, in the old Blue Cross, so the first attempt to get, it is a long road to hoe, right? And we have to be honest about that. The first attempt to get a universal healthcare system happened in, I think, 1948. Truman tried and failed. The second attempt was Medicare and Medicaid, which made a big advance, and it was supposed to be the next step. And during the 50s and 60s, Blue Cross Blue Shield, actually, it was a personal insurance as I understand it, but it also was structured in a way that helped to stabilize the hospitals, right? And then through deregulation, it has gotten increasingly worse, in the 70s and certainly accelerating into the 80s and after that. The real issue is, and I'll tell you that this is a great example of one of the differences between me and the other candidates, because all three of the other candidates say that this can't be done. And we have to figure out a way to just put a Band-Aid on this bullet hole. Right? We die 6 years earlier on average than we have to. I think that's worth fighting for.
Amen.
Okay. And we're finally getting to the point that it is getting bad enough that people are beginning to look around and say, I want to change. For the first time in history, 50% of doctors are in favor of a single payer government sponsored system for the first time. Okay. Hospitals, so doctors are beginning to recognize that this is not the system that they want to be part of. They want something better for their patients. Right? For the first time, hospitals are going out of business, and they're starting to say, the fastest turn I get on money is, and they pay faster. It's cleaner organization. It's one system. I'm spending huge amounts of time and money trying to get my money out of these people that they're slow rolling me to maximize their profits. So the hospitals and the caregiving system is poised to flip. And if the doctors, and oh, by the way, nurses have just been declared not a profession anymore by this, right? So if you've got doctors and you've got nurses and you've got the healthcare system, and then you've got the people saying, I want this, that is the only way we're going to make it happen. And it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight like civil rights was, like legislation that allowed women to vote. Allowed. Thank you for none of you women throwing rocks at me for saying the word allowed. And, you know, all these things that were deemed impossible, that had strong interests against it, you have to stand up and fight. And do I expect that I'm going to get this approved in 2 years? I'm going to work for it. It may be until after we get a Democratic president in before we can get it signed, but we have to start laying the groundwork. And frankly, I have to be going door to door in 18 counties in southern Indiana to help people understand why it's important to get the political support so we can fight for this. If the best we're going to do is say, well, we want to tinker around the edges and make it a little bit better, we're never going to build the political capital and power we need to make the change. Change happens by fighting for it. We never got it by asking on supplicant knee in a timid way for what we need. We're dying 6 years early. Why is this not the biggest crisis in the United States right now? Anyway, I'm passionate about it. You are right. It is going to be a very difficult fight, and it may be a long fight, but if we don't, 80 years from now, our great-great-grandchildren will be saying, they talked about it in 2025, 2026. They talked about it. We've got to do better. We've got to try. I would rather go down swinging than just live in the corner and die 6 years early.
But
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned going door to door. Should you get the luck, you'll get the nomination.
It's going to happen.
Okay.
Sing it.
As the nominee,
Yes, ma'am.
have you built enough by going counties, enough potential coalitions that you can get people to knock on doors, to promote healthcare, to promote education, to promote the things you're going to stand for and fight for? Have you built an army?
That is an excellent question. Let me show you something. There's a sign-up sheet right here. All right. And what I want you to, yes, you did. What I want all of you to do is to sign up. And I'll tell you, I talked earlier about going to all 18 counties. I will tell you, it has only been 17 counties. I apologize to Switzerland County. I've tried several times and I keep missing Switzerland County. Something always comes up. The day they have their meeting, there are 2 or 3 other meetings and it just never works out. So I need to go to Switzerland County, and I will go to Switzerland County if you're out there. The reason that I'm going, one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I've gone to 17 of the 18 counties, is for exactly that. Because if we're going to win, we have to build the relationships. And I've built a lot of strong relationships. I've met a lot of great people. And one of the problems that I've frankly run into is many of the people, they have to remain neutral until after the primary, right? After the primary, then I can start engaging with them. But when you guys, actually, when you were talking about what is my strategy to get young people, it's going to come down in many cases to grandparents talking to grandchildren, right? It's going to come from people with relationships that are mentors, that put signs in their yard and that put flyers out and are open to discussion. I'll tell you a real quick story about changing minds. All right. When I was 17, when I was planning on marrying my wife, I had a high school civics teacher. And at the time, this is probably a bad room to say this, I was a Reagan Republican. I was raised in a Republican household. This is what my dad thought. That's what I thought. And I was talking to him and I was doing some sort of a report. And I like numbers, I always have. And I said, when Social Security started, there were like 30 people, I think, that were paying in for every one person that was going into, that was drawing Social Security. And then I don't remember what, there was another point in time that it was 16-1. And at the time that I talked to him, I'm going to make up a number because I don't remember what it was like 8-1. And I said, if you look at the projection, it's going to be 4-1 or 3-1 when I retire. It's not sustainable. Why would you be in favor of a system like this? And he said, because the alternative is they starve to death, right? And we have a duty to take care of each other. And I remember that to this day. He was a person that I respected, and he was an elder, and he gave me a perspective on life that my young, arrogant self had not yet seen. And we need to do that. And we need to help them understand that they are not doomed. They can help make the changes to fashion the world that they want. And frankly, the old hippie baby boomers did exactly that when it was their day. And they're going to have to step up and do it in our day. So you had something you wanted to tag on to.
Actually, I want to speak to what Karen said. And forget about Brand for a minute.
Let's not do that.
She's gonna try and get me to volunteer.
This isn't about Brand. This is about.
Yes, ma'am, correct.
This is about Lawrence County. This is about building our party. And this is about connection. You know, it's gonna be Brad, there's gonna be somebody else, but we have to be together as Democrats. And right now, we are working very hard on building a list, a mailing list. If you did not get a flyer for the next Thursday dinner, I would like your name and address. Brad will be there to chat with everybody.
Which is the third time here.
Yes, ma'am. Fourth time.
And one of the main things about whatever it is Brad is trying to do depends on our precincts. We have 80 precincts in Lawrence County. We need to start building our chair people for the precincts.
Did you say
80 precincts, 40 precincts. Because we need people. That's it.
80?
Because every precinct should have 2 chair people. But once you start getting those little pieces and get people into those little pieces, it makes it much easier. That's why I was talking to Brad, or I brought up, knocking on doors.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. You do it by looking at the precinct and getting your precinct and working in that direction. We have 5,000 people voted for Kamala in Lawrence County, 5,000 Democrats. So just think about that number. We have 600 in the caucus. I've got like 250 on my mailing list. How do we get to those other thousands of people?
And so we had a high percentage of people who did not vote. Either, I don't know,
12,000 people did not vote.
yeah, so we
Well,
did not,
That were registered to vote.
yeah.
And anyway, I think it all comes down to the precinct, and
yes,
this does tie into Brad, because
yes, ma'am.
it's a nomination, it isn't about us.
Helping you get elected.
Get together and build our
Yeah.
little pieces in Lawrence County.
Sing it, sister. So, and you are 100% correct. And I will add.
Well, he doesn't know.
You know, sometimes when my wife and I are interacting, I'll say, tell me the 3 little words I love to hear. You were right, right? We came in third in a 2-way race in the last election. More people stayed home than voted for Democrats, right? We've got a primary coming up, and I think that the magic number is probably going to be about 12,000 votes that I need to win the primary. I would love for 5,000 votes to turn out in this county for me. That'd be huge. But the fact is, very few people vote in the primary.
And one of the other problems is I think Democrats are gonna wanna vote for Republicans, because this is the only race that Democrats have a choice on. I'm afraid that in the primary, they're gonna go Republican where they can choose. We have like county commissioners and county council and township people, and they're all Republicans. So that's a big fear that I have.
That's a legitimate concern. It's
I've
important.
been reading a lot about people online. I'm on the Hoosiers Against Braun website.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of people that are saying they're Democrats, but they want to vote primary for Republicans to make sure that the candidates that Trump is got on the TV commercials, that he's trying to, his vendetta tour, that he's trying to get back at those the Republicans who voted against his redistricting fund. Thank you. And so there are some of them who are wanting to vote on the primary Republican so that doesn't happen, that those people aren't the chosen ones.
I understand the logic behind that.
Yeah.
If you pull a Republican ballot, first of all, we need people to run for office. Okay? And if you pull a Republican ballot,
Right there is the only person in Lawrence County running for a Lawrence County office.
Good for you. Well, let me say, I'm not for that. I'm just saying.
yeah, I get the logic. One of the things that this has been my experience voting as a Democrat most of my life in Indiana. I go in, I fill out my ballot, I hand in my ballot, I drive home, I turn on the radio and they say all the Democrats lost. Okay. I get it. But I did it every time because it is important, especially now because I'm on the ballot. So it's important that you vote, but it's also important to be counted. It is important that we stand up and they look at the numbers and go, oh, we don't have a mortal lock on the hearts and minds of everyone. The biggest thing that everyone can do, all the Democrats can do in this primary is to show up with overwhelming numbers for the Democrats in this primary. Because what that will do is it will empower the state to get help from the federal party to invest in Indiana. Okay, we need strong numbers. And frankly, it is Erin Houchin is a political animal. Okay, she is. And if she looks at the primary numbers and goes, whoa, there's a lot of energy behind the Democrats. If she sees high Democratic turnout, you will see her beginning to soften her positions even now before the election. The only political handle we have to curb her behaviors today is to vote in the primary to get counted as a Democrat so that she goes, there's political pressure, I have to change. That is the only lever that we have right now.
She's working overtime to try to act like all these things for children now. Because she knows that people are, the heat about her voting no on opening the Epstein files. So she made an appearance in Brown County. And it's this whole thing about keeping your children safe on the computer. And so she's been doing that. She also today had a video where she's touting all of the benefits of the tax breaks that we supposedly did, we got in the big beautiful bill. It's sickening.
Well, we're already seeing some change in her behavior because in the last election, it's not funny, sorry. In the last election, she refused to debate with her Democratic opponent. And she actually went to Georgia to help another candidate instead of staying in her own district because she didn't feel that she needed to. And she didn't because she beat the guy 2-1. Okay. Now suddenly she's talking more about children. She's showing up in the communities more. And it's not out of the goodness of her heart. It's because she's a political animal and she understands that she's vulnerable.
But she's not like having a town hall or answering questions or anything. She's doing photo ops and saying what she wants to say and go.
She's not that nervous.
And she doesn't return calls, email, text. She does not reply when you.
And she shows up at safe events like Chamber of Commerce meetings and.
But when you have a concern about how she's gonna vote, she will not reply.
There's another advantage of a large Democratic turnout tonight. Strategically, in the macro view, is that it's always, the Republicans see it as safe, they're not spending any money. All of a sudden, if they feel threatened, money's going to come from someplace else that they may have spent it on a closer rate to subsidize here, I mean, there's only X amount of cash that they can allocate. And, she's the golden girl. They don't want to see her get beaten. Yeah.
I like the idea. There's so many people voting in the night that the Democrats decide to put the money in this district.
Yes.
Yes. Understand what a great candidate.
That's that.
Yes, ma'am.
We always talk about money and, money is really, really important because, that sign costs some money. But what I think is even more important is what we're talking about now is connections. And it doesn't cost me anything to call my neighbor or call my friends and say, hey, if you voted. I mean, that's a very, it's very free, we can do that for free. And when you bring your circle of friends and relatives in, there was a video, Brad, about marijuana, and it was really funny when he had a beer, this is legal, and he puts his glass about it, and gets real cool. And my relatives were looking at that video. I had a party the other day, and one of my stepsons said, wow, I'm gonna vote that guy, It's like, wow, just to have, and the money's important, we're gonna give you a lot of money to get it all at the top. But right now, it's relationships, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say that one of the things, in addition to telling me that I shouldn't come to Lawrence County, I should spend all my time in 3 counties that I didn't listen to. The other one was, you need to spend time raising money. I have not spent a lot of time raising money. I spent most of my time going county to county because the base relationships are important. And I told my staff that I would rather lose in the primary than win the primary and then lose in the general election, right? Because that just wastes 6 months of their life, right? And everybody's time and energy. I need to be building, you're talking about the relationships and you're talking about the networks and all of it. I need to be building that base during the primary season. And that, I raised enough money to do what I needed to do, but my primary focus was in building the relationships. Like I said, this dinner will be the 4th time I've been here. And frankly, I should have been here more. And the other thing is that for the money that we raised, we've done an awful lot in the community. So,
Because they've been hired fast, except for our is working for free.
so if you look at, if you look at, what I've done, we did 2 universal healthcare forums, and then we did a protest at Camp Atterbury. And then I was going county to county to county. I went to as many of the county fairs as I could. And then I have been going to as many of the county party meetings as I could. We've had 5 small roundtable meetings with subject matter experts on different topics, including the effects of policy, education policy for disabilities, the effects of economic policies on disabilities, the effects of healthcare policies on disabilities, that there were obviously 3 of those, and then one on addiction and mental illness, and then one on the environment. Okay. And then I've had, I think, 16 or 17 of these types of meetings, and we've had several others. So I've used the money. I have not used it on consultants. I've had some consulting input, but it was free. They told me I couldn't wear a yellow shirt anymore. I don't understand why, but that's advice I've gotten, and you see I'm not wearing a yellow shirt. But it was free advice, and I took it.
Blue is a better color.
So what I'm saying is that I've been very respectful of the hard-earned money that has been donated, and I have not blown it on subject matter experts that are trying to make a living off of me. I've tried to invest it as much as possible in these events. So after the event's over, I have a story about me wearing blue shirts that I'll tell. Yeah.
Out of respect, if you think, going over our time,
Oh, okay. Yeah, we need to be done.
you know, just hanging out with us, just because.
Okay. All right.
You still have 21 minutes.
Okay. Well, well, and I appreciate that. Let's finish up this. I appreciate this discussion. This has been a lot of fun. I like Lawrence County, and I'm looking forward to the dinner as well. And I thank you all for being here, and I thank you for that. And as soon as we're out, I will tell you my story about my blue shirt. So once you kill it.
Somebody read this.
It's not